What's up, everybody? Welcome to ClearTalk. So in this video, we're going to be discussing how um if are women going to be the actual decisive decision makers for this year's election. It's very interesting, and I think the numbers are looking like that might be a good case for it. And then also I'm going to talk about my predictions for the election. So buckle in. So if you are liking the content and stuff that I'm doing on here, please consider subscribing, like, share, all that good stuff. Please check out my other channels. You got JMD Drummer up there, JMDPLAY. The drummer one I just put out a cover on yesterday, so you you can check that out. JMDPLAY, we've been doing. I've got good bit of new videos up there for the new Fortnite season and stuff. If you are interested in that, check that out. But other than that, though, you have the Discord, and then of course the one-time donation, or the AMD Nation up above from Patreon, $3 a month. There, anything you do is much appreciated. Thank you very much for any support that you give, uh, even if it's just watching these brainless videos. So yeah. All right. So this year's election, uh, who do I feel like is going to have the biggest impact? Um, when you look at the demographic breakdowns and stuff, I mean, it is obviously the largest. You know, just on a macro scale, is the white population, clearly. But when you break it down into gender roles, women are the largest demographic. In the past roughly 40 years, have women have broken as the largest demographic in voting for the presidential elections, and uh, so it's not that it's necessarily something new, but what is very dynamic about this particular year is the gender gap in the directions that they are going. They there's a larger number going in opposite directions, because you have more males actually identifying as Republican and more females identifying as Democratic. Um, and even and while that is, in and of itself interesting, um, there's a couple other theories. Of course, is that you have the potential for even those women who are registered Republican, um, breaking in a different way. Uh, this is there's a lot there's an actual look into this where there's actual thought that there's potential for what percentage of women actually are breaking from this, even secretively. Now, granted, there is also the talk of the secret um, Trump vote, which like the person who actually votes Trump and but doesn't really want people to know that they are. I think that there is a potential for that, but I think it's relatively small, if in my opinion. I don't think there's a large percentage of the population that are necessarily voting Trump secretly. But the idea is also what part of the population might be secretly voting for Harris. And the interesting part there, the argument is that it would be Republican women whose husbands or significant others are voting for Trump, but they are secretly and maybe even publicly saying that they're going to vote for Trump too. But once they get into the voting booth, when they actually place their vote, they were actually voting for Harris secretly. And the big thing about that is that, and the reason why women are breaking from that, obviously, is, well, maybe not obviously, but I would think the largest reason why is Roe versus Wade. This has been something that has really broken the nation since since it happened, and you have several states this tomorrow that will be voting on abortion issues across. I want to say uh, one, two, three, four, five, six, maybe 7 or 8 states, roughly, that are voting for, maybe more than that, that are voting for abortion issues, and and there's a couple of the actual battleground states that are doing this. You have both Nevada and Arizona. Both are doing abortion issues, and that's a very interesting thing there. So, uh, and I think this is pushing a lot of, and on top of that, uh, there's just something about Trump that, for some reason, tends to, for some reason, I'm being, for some reason, he turns women off, uh, and seriously though, the when you look at his campaign and how he has ran his campaign this time around in 2024, especially here recently, the he just his campaign has seemed to refuse something I've said over and over again. They seem to refuse to actually. Well, the campaign attempts to do it, but he himself just refuses to actually try to pull in other voters. He's constantly doing nothing but pandering to his base. Everything he talks about, everything he brings up, everything he is all about either pandering to his base, or it's all grievances on himself. He seems to lack the ability to get outside of that, to actually try to talk to voters who may not be in his boat yet. He just doesn't seem to have the capability to really do that. And the demographic that is breaking for him most is men. Uh, Obviously, white men the most. There is some demographic of others, black men that that are trending a little bit. Very small. Okay, we're not talking about significantly here. I mean, uh, there's always around roughly somewhere around 10% of the black male vote that is Republican and conservative, that vote for Republicans. Um, that somewhere between 10, 12, some roughly maybe 15, sometimes at most on average. Uh, with Trump, it has crept up closer to 20%, like around 17, 18%. But we're not talking about significant here, though. I mean, that's not, he keeps talking like he's just grabbing in all these votes, but it's really not. The significant amount of black men still are going to vote Democratic. Um, but that's the reason why it was kind of a backlash a little bit that Obama went out there and tried to make this kind of virtue towards black, or almost in a not so good way, uh, and it kind of rubbed off wrong, I think, and I thought it was silly to do, I honestly, but anyways, but yeah, you're having a majority of men, white men particularly, on the Trump train, but you have actually, it's looking more and more like a majority of white women, particularly even, especially suburban women, the largest um, demographic as far as actual location, where we're talking about urban to suburban to rural, the largest voting block there is actually suburban women, suburban white women at that. So where you have the majority of urban probably breaking towards Harris, the majority of rural breaking towards Trump. Suburban, though, is the largest and the one that has had a trend here looking as if they are breaking more for Harris. Now, there's probably a little bit of a split, but the majority of it seems like this voting, the breaking for Harris. And like I said, all of this is, you have multiple things here. The Roe versus Wade, for one. And then on top of that, just the simple fact that there is a woman going for president. And yeah, we've had Hillary attempt it, back in 2016, but Hillary was an unliked person. Is no matter she just uh, she was just a very she's just a very unliked person. And I don't think genuinely anybody really wanted to see her as president. I mean, there was some, granted, there's some that's always been kind of a Hillary kick, but she's just not a very popular person. And funny enough, that was when looking back in history, uh, well, right now, Harris is way more popular than Hillary. She's reaching popularity numbers right now in her electorate that are looking close to Obama favorability numbers. Um, right there in that range. So she's highly popular right now, way popular than Hillary. And when you look back at popularity in presidential elections, uh, pres- candidates who are the most popular win. The only one who has ever won that was not the most popular candidate, funny enough, was Trump in 2016. He was less popular than Hillary, but on the scale of popularity, Hillary was not popular either. She was underwater. So he's the only one in history has actually won when being the least popular of the main ones going for president. So while that sounds like that would make him have potential here even now, the problem with that is that he was unknown in 2016. He's known now, well known now. So I don't think there's going to be a surprise break for Trump here. The surprise break is going to be for Harris. And the more and more we look at early voting numbers across all these states, while some of the early votes in Nevada were actually looking like they were leaning towards, to Trump. The problem with that that was very early voting that was majority uh, seniors, older people that were going out and voting, and so it was a little bit skewed. Since then, the early voting has actually swung a little bit more back in Harris's direction, even in Nevada. And all the other states, they've been significantly more for Harris, and even more so in the early voting. The gender gap has been significantly more in favor of women versus men. Women are actually early voting almost 2 to 1. Um, Actually, yeah, about 2 to 1 to men, and it's looking more like women are breaking for Harris in those votes. So all these different trends, on top of the fact of like I said, the Roe versus Wade, that is a big issue going, and even in your states that are you know have a good chance of going red, like say when you're looking at Nevada and Arizona, they're both favored right now to go red. But also with Roe versus Wade being introduced there in this election as something, voting uh, things in this election, this could bring out a lot of Democratic support. So we could potentially look at a large amount of women being motivated to vote this election. And a lot of them motivated to vote for their own rights, which means that they were going to break for Harris. And with the recent rhetoric from Trump in his campaign and his rallies, seemed to be very misogynistic. He's not seeming to make any kind of attempt to try to pull in women votes. Even his ending campaign ad was, in my opinion, for one, it kind of went more in the direction, in the misogynistic direction about men and working, and the hard workers are men, and then also it had some little anti-trans stuff in there, and which is something that they've been doing in these last ending ads as well. They were first big on the immigration thing, but they kind of dropped off of it, and here recently they've been really hitting on the trans stuff. But his ending ad was like that, and it was all. And for one, it was somebody speak. Somebody else. What was interesting to me, it wasn't Trump was not in it really at all. And it was somebody else speaking. Where Kamala's ending closing ad was about unity, about freedom, talking about a lot of her policy things that she's motivated to work on or work towards. Talking about being a candidate for all people, not just her side. It was a very, and it was her the entire time, her speaking the entire time. It was, so you saw her, you heard from her. It was just a much better ad, much smarter, better put together ad for a closing ad that's been going around more than likely in all the battleground states. Because that's where they've been hitting the hardest. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, all these different, all these major battleground states that they have a lot of concern in, which is one problem with the whole electoral process to begin with. The electoral college, it allows for so-called battleground states and everything. So, but what's also interesting is that in the early voting, funny enough, you've had a lot of younger vote also, and a lot of senior women vote, and a lot of the senior women vote. Interestingly enough, have actually also broke for Kamala. So there is a potential here, in my opinion, for a major upset for Republicans. And this is what's going to lead me into my predictions. I'm telling you right now, which is something that I have predicted all along, and I've talked about all along, is that the motivation that Kamala had when she became the candidate, when she picked Tim Walz, going all the way through the debate, even all the way through Walz's debate, the VP debate, there was so much motivation that was moving them in the right direction. Now, there was about a month or so where they had a fall off. And that was when the Biden people came to her and tried to change her whole direction of her campaign. They tried to say that the whole um, uh, like weird stuff and the we're not going back stuff. They acted like that was all negative, and that she needed to pander more towards center right and to Republicans that or disaffected Republicans that didn't really want Trump or whatever, but they didn't know where weren't so completely sure about Kamala, because all the rhetoric you've heard from Republicans is, oh, she's just a no, that we don't even know who she is, like she doesn't have policies, we don't know what she's really stands for, when she has clearly had policy stuff out there for a while now. She talks about it every freaking where she goes. It's ridiculous that this argument has continued to be made. um it's just you're just pretending, you're just saying shit that isn't true just because you don't want to admit that it's not true. Um, but they hear that stuff and it's like, it's all you hear. Um, and it's the reason why she's constantly having to say it over and over and over again. And even like in her closing ad, she's pretty much laying it out who she was, what she was going for. Now, how much of that can she actually get done? That's a whole nother story. But um, the whole Liz Cheney and all that BS, that that really threw a wrench, I think, in their motivation, and their momentum. And but here in the past 2 weeks, that seemed to have went away. It's almost as if Kamala realized that the campaign was backsliding, and they jumped off of the whole Cheney thing for the most part. They got Tim Walz back out there on the campaign trail. She started back on hard on the campaign trail, and seemed to be bringing back the whole um, uh, we're not going back thing, and the freedom thing. Talking, there's just the last 2 weeks she's been really moving in a much more direction like they started and begin with, ending it pretty strong. Had some major rallies here lately. A lot of people, uh, and so I feel that the motivation going in, and on top of that, the fact that Trump has had some really bad rallies lately. Stuff that has come um, out of the rallies, especially the one in Madison Square Garden, where you got a lot of backlash from the comedian, along with some very concerning things that come off even of the other speakers' mouths and stuff. Very misogynistic, very and uh, just all about divide. Everything that you hear out of their campaign is just a bunch of grievances and division. Trying to divide people up. It's badgering people. It's talking bad about people. That's all you hear. Now you hear from the people in the actual, the MAGA people and whatnot. They'll be like, no, all you see and hear is just love and every blah blah blah. Yeah, what's in those is love for yourself and hate for everybody else. That's what's actually being broadcasted. You're just not seeing it. It's love for everybody that's there, love for the people who are praising Trump. But anybody else outside of that is getting nothing but hate. And that's what you're not seeing. And that's the people a lot of the people that you need to vote for you. Trump is thinking that he's either thinking he can completely he's either thinks that he completely has MAGA and that he also has a lot of other people that he just thinks he has and doesn't, or he has a plan, which he has said several times, he doesn't really even need people to vote. He's going to win it. Which that's something we're going to discuss later. um, but as far as the election is concerned, I think all of that pulling together, uh, in my opinion, everything is moving in the direction that Kamala is going to win. And and while a lot of polls are talking about it being, even and dead, neck and neck and all this kind of stuff, for one, polls have already been coming out. There's a lot of talk about them being uh, basically falsifying the polls to make themselves look better. What they call hurting the polls. It's a stupid term. I think it's just a ridiculous term, but hurting the polls, meaning that they are more concerned about not looking bad. So they sort of milk the results to make it look very close. So that either way it breaks, it doesn't make them look that bad. Because if they do the poll where they're showing, Harris with a 3-4 point lead, and then suddenly, Trump wins, then they'll look bad. Or if they give Trump a 3 or 4 point win and Kamala wins, then they'll look bad. So they're trying to save face, trying to make themselves not look like a bad poller by just keeping it almost even. That way, where there's only within 1 or 2 points, either way. So that if one breaks and wins by 1 or 2 points or 3 points or whatever, they won't look like they were that far off. And a lot of polls apparently are doing this. On top of the fact that a lot of polls are also favoring Trump because they underfavored him in the previous elections. And so they're compensating for that by overdoing him. So, and on top of that, well, because of all those things, I think polls are way off. Like, significantly off. I think it's not accounting for a lot of new voters that have just becoming voters this year. Also not taking into account the Roe effect. And this is I feel like there's going to be a major upset here for Republicans. I think Kamala is going to win, and she's going to win significantly. If I were to take a guess, I would say that she's going to probably win with roughly 300 and anywhere from 315 to 330 electoral votes. Probably in the 320 area. And Trump will be more around 130s, whatever the difference is. I think it's going to be a major upset, which for me is good, because the bigger the upset, the less likely any kind of argument in the way of like elections being stolen and stuff, which we already know Trump is going to do, is already setting it up for it to be done. Less likely for that stuff to be talked about or to come up or to sound like legitimate. So I personally think, which I've been saying all along, that the motivation, the momentum was moving in her direction, and as long as she kept on that flow, she was going to win significantly. I've been saying that the polls were off, and we've had more and more stuff come out here recently, basically proving that they are wrong. So yes, I do think that Harris is going to win, and she's going to win way bigger than the polls are showing, way bigger than a lot of people are thinking is she's going to win. And I think it's going to come down to women and Roe. Simple as that. I don't think the economy argument has been significant enough to help Trump. I don't honestly think the immigration argument has been significant enough to help Trump. Uh, I think he's just too much of a bad taste in people's mouths at this point. And while he, along with all his supporters, think that they have it in the bag, they've been talking about it. He's constantly been talking that he's been feeding this into them this whole time. That don't worry, we've got this. I've got all this support. We've been having such large crowds, and at all my rallies, selling them all out, and she hasn't had any. We've been having 20 and plus thousand people at our rallies, and she's only had a couple of hundred at hers. We haven't had an empty seat, but yet here recently, even Trump's own cameraman the other day, after him saying that, panned the crowd, showing empty seats in half the arena almost, and people leaving. Now, this could have been close to the end of it, and maybe that was the reason why. But the point was that when he said it, though, there was a lot of people there, but there were a lot of empty seats too. And then there have been also videos taken from people in the crowd that have been shared showing other events, multiple events here lately, where there were empty seats. So his rhetoric is not flowing, is not making sense. It's showing that he's constantly lying, which we've already know he's doing. But he's been filling their heads up with that, we've got such big crowds, she's not having any, while Kamala's actually having thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people coming. The rally she had in Washington, D.C., where Trump had the rally on, Jan 6 in 2020, she had like 70-something thousand people there. Massive. That is massive. The support is there. The momentum is there. I think people want something different. People want something fresh. Is she the perfect woman to be the first woman? Probably not. But she's good enough. It certainly could be worse. It could have been Hillary. But while I'm not completely convinced that she'll be able to get all the things she says that she's going to try to do, I do actually think she's going to try on some of it. And she might be successful with some of it. And I have hope for other things. So, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. And I think we all need to be prepared, though, for what Trump and his supporters and followers are going to do after the fact. Because I think they have a whole plan. The reason why Trump has said about that him and Johnson have a secret. And people are thinking that that secret is them trying to do everything they can to postpone the election as long as they can. Because districts and stuff have to have their electors and stuff have to have it decided, the votes counted and validated by and turned in like officially by like December the 11th or something, somewhere around there. And the idea seems to be that they're going to try to postpone that as much as possible in key states. Postpone it, postpone it. And if they can't get there by and get that officially done by December 11th, in a normal case, all you would have is the Speaker of the House just extend that period. If say if there was a count issue that they're trying to work through or whatever the case, they would extend that. But in this scenario, he's betting on Mike Johnson just saying, sorry, we're not extending it, and you passed the deadline, so we aren't counting you. So I think that's the theory of what they're going to try to do, is literally not have some eligible to be casted, the the electors to be casted, so that to the point that Trump would win without winning the majority, without winning the 270. And the idea would be to hold back Democratic districts. Or just hold back period so that a whole, or just hold back period so that a whole state isn't counted. Especially if it's a Democratic state. I don't know how successful that could be, but it is a potential thing to happen. So I think we all need to be concerned, looking for it. All the rhetoric that he's going to try to spit, he will probably even try to claim that he's won the election before it's an actual official. Like, he will try to do it as quick as possible, so that he already sows in that, hey, yeah, we won, we got this one. Yeah, we're done. I'm going to be president. And then his followers just assume he's telling them the truth. And then when there's a whole bunch of backlash, no, it hasn't been official yet. Officially, you have not. And officially, at some point, Harris has won. Then it'll be the whole, whoa, wait a minute. I won. What are you talking about? Why are y'all saying I haven't won? And then it'll be a whole thing. So we need to be looking for that. But yes, that's my prediction. I think Harris is going to win. I think she's going to win much more significantly than most people think. Anyways, thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think. Do you think that I have a point? Do you think I am on the, in the right direction? Possibly. Do you think it's going to be women? Do you think it's going to be the Roe issue that's going to be the biggest thing to break the election in a certain direction? What you think? Let me know in the comments, and who you predict to win, and how much, maybe. All right, let me know. Thank you very much. Until next time, peace. Clear Talk. I'm out.